Good afternoon. I'd like to call the January 2018 Tree Advisory Commission meeting to order this Thursday, January 4th at 4 p.m. First of all, welcome to everyone. Let's do some introductions. Steve, should we start with you?
I'm Steve Kaler, City Engineer, Advisory capacity.
Tom Romaine, Commissioner.
Wayne Shopper, Commissioner.
Arlen Body, Commissioner.
Lisa Langer, Commissioner.
Shane Omersa, Minnesota Green Corps member.
Tony Kuckersberg, advisor.
Thanks, everyone. First of all, Commissioners, if you had a chance to read, let's see, let's talk about the agenda first. The agenda, any amendments, or do we have a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor of approving today's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Okay, let's take a look at the minutes from our last meeting. Everyone had a chance to read the minutes from November 22nd, 2017. Any additions or corrections?
I would like to, item one, the other commissioners present, I think I'd like to have my name in there because I made motions during the meeting that are in the minutes, but
Okay.
theoretically I wasn't here, so.
Okay. Okay. So you're making a motion, would you state that
Well,
again?
that's not a motion, just
Oh,
a
just
correction to the
correction.
minutes
Okay, correction.
that I was present at the meeting.
Who keeps track of that, by the way? Are you the guy, Shane? Or we'll take care of that. All right.
Okay, well, I'm just, otherwise, yeah.
Any other comments or?
Mr. Chair, I noticed that under advisory members, Jeff Falcons was also here from the electrical department, so probably could add his name.
Someone taking notes, Shane? Okay.
I'm taking notes. Yeah.
Very good, thank you. All right, very good, very good. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from our November 2nd meeting?
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Okay, let's move on through the agenda. Old business, tree reimbursement, city tree reimbursement programs, budget 27 and 2018, Mr. Kaler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's see if we can scroll down here and find the spreadsheet that we normally go through. Too far. Okay, so the top portion is the Tree Advisory Commission City Reimbursement Program. So this would be through and including the year 2017. As you can see, there's a list of trees planted. Totaled 38 plantings, a total cost of about $7,100. Total reimbursement of just under $4,100. So you had budgeted $4,300 of your last year's budget for tree reimbursement program. So you were about $200 balance under what we had budgeted, or you had budgeted. So it was kind of an average year. I think over the last 10 years, we've been averaging about 40 trees per year in the reimbursement program. So I'd say it was a pretty good year. If you want me to move into the budget as well.
Please.
The bottom portion of that spreadsheet is somewhat dedicated to the budget. You can see the budgeted amount for 2017 was $6,000, and then there was a $5,800 carryover for a total available of $11,800. Moving to the right on that yellow highlighted row on the very bottom, you used just under $10,500, which gives you a balance from 2017 of about $1,300. And I don't think we included the 2018 budget, but it was very similar. It was $6,000 total that was approved through the city council budget process. You had $2,400 earmarked for diseased and boulevard tree programs, $200 for the home show, $400 for printing and pamphlets, and $3,000 for Green Corps. So that's the total of $600. I don't know if you have any questions. I would assume that that the commission would want to request that the $1,300 be carried over. That happens in about February. The carryover request would be presented to the city council. We can take care of that for you if you so desire.
Do we need a motion on that, or just give you permission or whatever? Or ask
I
you to do?
would suggest a motion would be in order. Yep.
Do we have a motion to that address?
I would move that we ask the
Request.
city council to
Request.
the city council to take the surplus from 2017 and carry it over to our 2018 budget.
Do we have a second to that?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to bring forward the $1,300 and some odd dollars from the 17 budget, carry that forward into the 2018 budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed? Okay, very good. Anything else on the city tree reimbursement programs?
No, Mr. Chairman, unless you have any questions.
Any questions or comments? Okay. Looks excellent, by the way.
I do have one question for you. Under city park expenses, $643. Do you know what that's for?
I can't give you an exact accounting of it today. I don't know if Shane, you remember, there's a deeper spreadsheet I can bring the next time. I think there might have been some plantings in parks.
Okay.
Jeff
I-
Anderson puts this together, and I asked him a few questions, but there was a water main break today, so I didn't get a chance to get through all the numbers, but I can find that out.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay. Any other comments? Otherwise, let's move on forward in the agenda. Let's see. PUC tree reimbursement programs, we talked about that. Am I correct? Is
No,
that-
no,
All
Mr.
right,
Chair, we did not.
right, that's coming up. Okay, in budget 2017 and 18, Mr. Nelson?
Hello, I'm Derek Nelson. For you that don't know who I am, I'm the new Energy Services Representative from Public Utilities. And we'll start with the 2017 kind of recap. So the starting budget in 2017 was $3,000 for the shade tree reimbursement. And we gave rebates out to individuals, a total of 40 trees were given out, reimbursed, for a total of $2,729.30. And the total that was used out of that budget was $2,835.76. So some of that extra money that was spent was used in Power Facts and some other advertising to the community through the shopper and the journal and things like that. So about 94% of the budget was used, with just between 5 and 6% of the budget left, with a remaining balance of $164.24 in 2017. And as of 2018, the budget is also $3,000 for that conservation rebate.
Excellent. Any further comments from the commissioners or questions? Okay.
Yep.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Buckthorn Removal Volunteer Program, I don't see Ms. Van Curie here. Okay, let's move on. And garlic mustard, Mr. Gardner.
I don't have too much to say.
Okay.
Maybe I should say it officially. My name is Joe Gardner. I live at 1401 South Payne Street, and I'm helping the city with garlic mustard control. And you have the stuff in your packet. I hope you looked at it. Last year, the Ikes published 1,000 of these, and they're all gone now. Last meeting, I asked you to publish some for the use in the city of New Ulm. And so that's in your packet too. The front part is about the same, but I had to change some of the back. So that's more for the home show and knocking on doors and, then also garlic mustard control is best in the spring or in the fall. And right now it's evergreen, but of course it's covered with snow. In March or so, whenever the snow disappears, then it's accessible for control. In late March, if it's warm, or April, it'll start bolting up to about this height. And that's when it's easily seen and can be pulled. So on the back, I summarize that type of control method. There is another control method. It's using a flame torch, but I didn't want to really put that in a public document for obvious reasons. I refer people to my website, And I'm revising that to deal with the control methods and then links to other sites that they can go to. Did you know that the state of Minnesota has budgeted $750,000 over the last 10 years to research biological control to control garlic mustard? It's pretty much finished, but what they've done is there's a whole building up in the university, a big building for invasive plant control. It's one of the world centers for that. And this is just one project they're working on. They have to petition the federal government, the USDA, to get permission to release this. Nobody's gotten permission to release any biocontrols for maybe 2 decades now. It's very thorough. They want to avoid problems they've had in the past, by releasing something and then regretting it. I think you can appreciate that with the Asiatic lady beetle problem. So that's pretty cool. Boy, that would be a great thing to get and to try out. The person who was researching it also did the purple loosestrife and the leafy spurge biocontrols that are applied now, and they're somewhat effective. So the other thing is the LCMR this summer in July approved $300,000 to something called a tactical invasive plant management plan to kind of tie up a lot of the loose ends in Minnesota and try to determine where the 12 key species are that need to be controlled. They include buckthorn, Canada thistle, garlic mustard, Japanese knotweed, leafy spurge, multiflora, rose, narrowleaf bittercrest, plumeless thistle, purple loosestrife, spotted knapweed, tansy, and wild parsnip. And they're trying to get it a little better organized so that these things can be controlled and managed. And also there's a whole bunch of new ones coming in. One of them is giant hogweed. It's 15 feet high, and it's already in Wisconsin. So imagine a 15-foot high noxious weed spreading. Yeah. The other thing is, are we okay with getting this in the utility thing in March? Or
Didn't we have that part of our last meeting that it was approved?
and do I need to check on that, or what is the protocol for that?
Mm-hmm.
Did we?
Yep,
Okay,
under D
okay.
in the minutes
It follows the
Sure.
report.
with Maxim.
So,
You wanted the March flyer.
yeah.
You wanted
because-
it
Click
in
on that
March.
garlic
Right here.
mustard.
Because if we
Okay,
wait
and then
until
scroll
April,
down.
it's already, depending upon if we have a warm or a cool spring.
Pamphlets
A warm
follow.
spring, it could be started by then.
Mm-hmm. There was a maximum cost of $100.
That was a handout.
That was,
Or is that, would you put
Well,
this
let's see
handout
what's-
in that? Or is there a separate page or something that it gets on? Or do I need to make a more reduced version of this for that?
Would the garlic mustard handout be a good potential candidate for the utility bill flyer?
I think that's what we talked about, wasn't it? And when we choose
November
this,
meeting, correct. I can't remember all the details, but that sounds right.
I think it was gonna be one of our topics for that spring utility.
Starts to emerge at about that time, am I correct? Theoretically.
Yeah, depending on weather,
Exactly.
which, can't really depend on that too much,
Yeah.
but, well, do I,
I don't know how that works then, because because with the utility stuffer, isn't that just covered? We've never really had to
take it out of the budget.
Right, I didn't think so. I thought that was part of your program, Derek.
Yeah, if you jump ahead,
We have-
it's April and August is when the stuff is going. I verified that today. And it's. yeah.
We have a line item in our budget for PUC utility bill insert printing expenses. Although I would caution my fellow commissioners that about our budget this year, we have a $6,000 budget given to us by the city, plus we get the request fulfilled for our carryover. That's going to give us a budget of somewhere a little bit just over $7,000. Last year we spent $10,471. So we're going to have to be somewhat tighter on that. We have not to pick on Shane, but there's of that $7,000, the amount used in 2017 for Green Corps expenses was $4,655. So, and
Mr. Chair, we could dig into those numbers a little bit, but I would suggest that most of those were probably startup expenses. It was nice that there was some kind of a carryover from the previous year to
Okay.
accommodate that good work that
we had
Green Corps member Shane has been doing, so.
a $5,800
Exactly.
carryover, and this year we're not going to
Yep.
have that.
So it's a good point. I'm glad you mentioned that, Mr. Romaine.
Any questions or comments from Mr. Gardner? Okay, otherwise, thank you for your presentation. All right, moving on. Minnesota Green Corps.
Yeah.
Shane, yes.
Thank you, Chair. So first about the tree inventories. As of right now, 3 36-block areas of town have been completed for the streets inventory, the right of way. So that's about 108 blocks, which I've had good volunteer assistance with that along the way. We were primarily focused on kind of being in the space between the sidewalk and the curb, but then later on realizing that the right-of-way extends a bit further from the sidewalk, and this is varying across the city. So I did spend some time, and Tom came out and gave some assistance with picking up these extra trees that were out there. And so then I'll be continuing with that in the spring with the volunteers, kind of half and half with the volunteers helping with the in between the sidewalk and the curb. And so
How far is that, Shane?
is that
How much more is that, the distance?
the right of way from what's been done? It varies depending on where you are in the city. It could vary depending on the block.
Hmm.
And so I had Jeff Anderson in engineering. He was able to supply me with a list of all of the right-of-way widths and street widths in the city. So I'm able to calculate what's left over. So, but it does vary.
Mr. Chair, just to interject here, in some of the newer subdivisions, the area behind the sidewalk to the property line is probably a foot, and the grid part of the city is generally about 7 feet in the 80-foot right-of-way area. As an example of an unusual right-of-way, as Broadway is 120 feet, you could have 20 feet behind the sidewalk. So as Mr. Omersa mentioned, it does vary in different parts of the city. So it could be anywhere from 0 to 20 feet, but generally it's about 7.
Yeah, but
Thank you.
but I have all of those numbers, so I'm able to account for those things. But for now, I've decided to switch to finishing up the remainder of public land in the city. We were able to get the parks done, and areas where there's city facilities, city hall, police department, fire department. But now there are other public lands that are out there in the city that are remaining. I was able to get a map and a spreadsheet of where those are, And so I know, I have kind of a plan made out for that. I'm mostly focusing on, areas of freestanding trees. So, just kind of off on the road, not wooded areas. And so I've identified 25 locations in town that match this. And so my goal now is to, through the summer on more pleasant days, to go and inventory those spots. And then pick up in the spring with volunteers to continue the streets inventory. So that's what I have on the inventories portion here.
Very
For
good.
tree plantings, I have no updates on that. And so moving on to the EAB plan. So the current draft of the EAB plan is available in the July 19, 2017 meeting packet. And so I said before that I want to update it and expand upon it. And so some of these changes are to clarify on specific preemptive actions that the city could take, emphasize applying the SLAM approach, which is slow ash mortality, and then also to just make the structure more readable, more navigable than it currently is. So there's a little bit more here I would like to talk about, give some insight, maybe get some insight back on this, on the direction I'm taking this. So the first thing is preemptive action that the city could take before emerald ash borer being discovered in the city. So the main strategy here is to, maintaining the ash, what to do about the ash trees in the city. And so the first thing would be, removing, preventing any more ash from being planted. I know that some things have been done, like taking any ash trees out of the boulevard and shrub policy. But then I was also looking through the city code, and I found that in section 9.21 subdivision 6, it talks about landscape requirements, minimum standards for landscaping, and it does list some species that have been prohibited from landscape plans, two being northern catalpas and Russian olives. And one suggestion I would have is considering adding a popular ash species to this list, green, white, and black, just to ensure that we're not getting any more ash trees out there. It's not really much of an investment do that, knowing that it's coming. It's already 52 miles south of here, and so it's not a really good long-term investment. So that's one suggestion that I would have to think about in terms of preventing more ash trees to be planted in the city.
I'd like to comment on that. That may seem like a good idea right now, but there is work taking place trying to come up with some way of controlling emerald ash borer. And then if you step back in history, which to me was current events, but anyway, if you get back to the Dutch elm disease era in Minnesota about 40 years ago now, it would have made sense to a lot of people to prohibit people from planting elm trees. But, there have developed cultivars of elm that seem to be resistant to Dutch elm disease, and we have planted them on the streets here. So perhaps we should not put something like a ban on ash trees in a city ordinance, which is kind of difficult to change, but maybe there's another venue for doing that.
Is there indeed a ban on planting ash trees? Or it's just not recommended, or?
I can fit in for that.
Yes,
As far as planting ash trees, you cannot plant ash trees if there's been quarantine in the county. Then no ash trees, because I just had an update there was a discount store at one of these places up in the cities that actually got some ash trees and were selling them. They got cited on it. But yeah, otherwise, no, we can, there's no ban in the county or anything like that, you can still plant ash trees. I mean, nobody does really anymore, just because
Yeah.
they're aware.
they're aware, yeah, that it could come, but as far as, I mean, you can still get them.
You mentioned it's been detected 52 miles south of here? Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, piggybacking on Mr. Gugelsberg's comments, the city reimbursement program will not reimburse boulevard ash trees.
Got it. Okay.
Doesn't prohibit the planting, but we're not going to participate in the cost.
Tony, are you aware you don't sell, do you sell ash trees?
No, we probably haven't for about 7 years now.
Okay, do you know, like, if Runnings and some of these other places, are they still selling ash trees?
I haven't seen them, but they may be, depending on where they get their plants. Sometimes some of these big discount stores don't have a lot of control of what they order. The companies will just send out certain trees, but
And the emerald ash borer may be self-limiting of, planting ash trees, because emerald ash borer has been known to infest trees down to a half an inch in diameter, and that's a pretty darn small tree. So even if somebody were to plant an ash tree, my assumption with emerald ash borer in Fairmont that we've got a year or two before it's here, and that somebody plants an ash tree, it's not going to get very big before emerald ash borer infests the tree. So,
Well, it could be here.
well, they say it's takes several years for an infestation to show up.
Okay.
But,
Right.
yeah, so
and there may be ash trees that have natural resistance to it too, much like the elm trees. There's some elm trees
keep your
still out here
fingers
that never
crossed
got it.
on that.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. I'd like to just clarify that I wouldn't, and I'm not sure how far this particular section would apply. With the landscaping plans, I'm not sure if that counts just somebody planting a tree in their yard, if that counts under this landscaping, this section. But certainly not prohibiting all ash, but maybe just three most common. I know that Manchurian ash had been has resistance to emerald ash borer, correct? Had like a natural resistance.
yeah.
So that's something that, maybe I guess I don't see why you couldn't plant, ash with like a known resistance.
Yeah, and the other one is too. There's a tree called the mountain ash, which many of you know it's got berries. It's not an actual ash tree in a family, but some people think because it says mountain ash that it is, but it has no. It's not in the same family, and that one's safe to plant.
Okay. Any other discussion on emerald ash borer?
Yeah, I do have I do have a little
Okay.
bit more here. So that was just one part of the preemptive action that I've kind of identified the city could take here. So there's also removing declining ash and any hazardous ash out there, and so that's going to require the inventory, and so that's proceeding. And I also know that the city is currently updating their GIS system, and I've been told that there's interest in getting a tree inventory add-on that will have useful features, inventory, and maintenance features, and so then that's coming soon. So both of these things together will help with identifying those trees, and then those could be removed. EAB is had been found to be more attracted to stressed ash over healthy ash, and so it's definitely a good idea and good practice to get rid of those unhealthy ash ahead of time, and then removing those numbers and potential food source. And then also maintain the quality of remaining ash trees, so applying best management practices. I haven't really looked extensively into this aspect of and what the city is currently doing, but two examples of this are, then you have construction projects respecting this certain area, the root protection zone around the tree that extends from the trunk out to a certain distance beyond the furthest outmost branches. And then also being aware of soil compaction, which can have a big impact on tree health. And then maybe just incorporating more of this into future construction plans as a requirement. So beyond that, with actually managing EAB once it gets here, I've said before of proposing the SLAM approach, the slowing ash mortality approach to this. And so this plan calls for using, this approach calls for using different tactics, treatment and different removals, utilizing trees to slow the spread of ash and reducing the peak costs and peak impacts of the bug when it gets here and does its thing. And so some options for the city here are saving high and medium quality ash trees, and then also utilizing low quality ash as for detection, and then also for use as trap trees. If you go to the tree, as I've said before, they're stressed, and so they're more of a magnet for EAB. And so you can use them in different ways to get rid of the pest, whether it's the eggs or the dormant larvae, and you can combine this with insecticides to reduce those numbers. So there are different options there for that. And so this really depends on whether the city would desire to look more into insecticides and long-term treatment as an option, or whether maybe preemptive removals are more the desired route for at least managing public ash trees. And another big question to ask is, once you have removed these ash trees, whether or not to replace them, or if you're going to replacing them right away, and coming up with a plan on that. And I think the gravel bed will definitely be a good tool in the future, in in being able to utilize barrier trees. And so beyond that, talking a little bit here, just some considerations about private homeowners. I think that they might be the ones that have have the greater proportion of the ash trees in town. And so definitely it's important to think about, how to encourage people to pay attention to their ash trees and to remove them if they're just beyond the point of saving before emerald ash borer gets here. And then also to consider if treatment is for them, different insecticide options. The city has done a lot with current programs to encourage future planting, the reimbursement programs. And then also the Boulevard Tree and Shrub Policy, gives a lot of good guidance on this. But then also with education, considering pre and post infestation education. Right now, including more on the website about emerald ash borer in the Tree Advisory Commission webpage, and then later on in once Emerald Ash Borer is here or has gotten here to kind of have material in place to be distributed to homeowners and to be sent out to news sources and even, you know, promoting volunteers who might be able to come out and be, you know, kind of the eyes for the city to kind of take a look around and identify some declining trees that might be, you know, succumbing to the ash borer. And so, and then also wood disposal and utilization. And so I'll be including more information on that. I'm not sure at this point if the compost site would be the desired place for any kind of ash wood. I know the Minnesota Department of Agriculture does have a list of approved or of sites that are taking ash wood in other counties where there is a quarantine. And so I imagine that, you know, if then emerald ash borer is discovered in Brown County, that there would be a similar thing. So those sites need to have a compliance agreement. And then I imagine that their names are put on this list. And so then all of what I've been talking about, I'll be putting into more detail later on, into a plan, into another draft that I hope to have to present at the next meeting.
Very good. Thank you.
I just
Yes,
have
yes.
just a question. With the trees you surveyed, do you have any sense of how many ash trees we have on our boulevards?
I think it definitely would help. And I guess for maybe improving the response.
Right, I just was wondering if you had a sense of how many.
Oh, a sense of how
like
many?
10% are ash trees, 20%, or if
Well,
anything like that.
What my source for that is the 2010 DNR community, the Minnesota Community Tree Survey. And so they
mean,
don't
with
have
this-
it in like boulevard trees.
Right, but I mean in the city of New Ulm, so
Yeah.
far with the trees that you've counted this last summer, do you have any sense of how many ash trees we have in New Ulm?
Not based on this inventory currently.
Okay,
No,
okay.
no, not based on this inventory.
Okay.
Any of those numbers would have to be from elsewhere.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, let's move on. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Nelson, utility bill stuffer mailing flyers.
I called the CCT department today just to clarify that Tree Commission has a spot in utility stuffer, or a stuffer for the utility bills. And it would be April and August in 2018 is when they are expecting something from the Tree Commission to go into the utility bill.
Derek, weren't we talking about, Joel said about trying to get March instead of April? Because if
Well,
we
that's-
do the garlic mustard?
That's what they told me today, and that's, if, I think that can be easily changed to March. If that so be.
What do you guys think?
I think March, according to Mr. Gardner, is appropriate.
Come out.
What's that?
Can I ask when it
Of course.
actually comes out during the month? Is
What
it
time of the month? Yeah.
Beginning, middle, or end?
I think they do a cycle, probably several weeks, so it's not all in one day. It might be
Correct.
3 Thursdays in a row. I don't know if.
Yeah, there's
Mr.
different
Nelson knows.
cycles. You know, they go out on the first,
So if you're trying to
collect the
control
bill.
something in
Yeah.
April, you
Yeah.
really want to try to get it in March. Because you'd miss some of it in April.
Well, if you guys want
That's-
March, you should ask for it.
Yeah.
I wish Tom was here because I don't know if he followed up on that or not, but I didn't, so.
So how do we go about requesting that?
Make a
Was
motion.
Mr. Nelson?
I'm guessing that
Okay.
they picked April and August because I believe that's what happened last year. That's
Why not February then? I mean,
yeah.
is that too early?
Probably because if you get it
Okay.
in March, and you notice that you might be able to actually go and
Okay,
look
Yeah.
for it, you know?
okay, got it.
We're gonna have to time this out with the information for the big tree contest also.
True. That's coming up in June.
Yeah, because my question is, what have you decided to put on that flyer? I mean, just garlic mustard or the big tree contest or other information?
I thought we had talked about doing both on the same flyer.
Right. I think we've done that in the past. One side garlic mustard, the other side the tree contest.
How did we do it last year? Do you recall? Yes. We didn't do it, period. Okay, got it.
We did
Oh, the buckthorn was last year.
I think
Okay.
that was part of the
Okay.
brochure, but not the whole thing.
Okay.
I think the other side had like the reimbursement program.
Yeah, I did-
So,
Looks like there was something I wrote down I found on while searching on my computer. Protect from deer must have been something for during the rut. Tree self-inventory, a useful info section, and then volunteering with buckthorn removal is what I wrote down. That was in 17. Then in 16 there was reimbursement programs and about bur oak blight.
Any other commentary or questions from Mr. Nelson?
Do we need a motion to ask for that change in it?
Would we need a
Flyer.
motion for that or not? I'm not sure. Do we, or take it on
I don't need
advisement?
one. I haven't. Yeah, I mean, I'll just. I need one.
We would like to see that addressed, I guess.
And switch it to the March
Yes.
March
Yep.
mailing.
From
I
April
think
to
we're in
March.
consensus on that, am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you, timely, we gotta have it timely, but not too early, not too late. If it comes out in August, well, then the horse is out of the barn.
So with that flyer, then are we deciding that it would be the garlic mustard and the tree contest, those two items?
Well, and I
Sounds
think you
good to
should
me.
put on there the tree reimbursement programs again, because every spring, people call and ask, they got the program again? It'd be nice just to put it in a flyer that they're still happening, still in
Okay.
existence,
Will
so.
that stop the calls? Probably not, but it helps, it'll stop some.
Yeah.
At least it raises awareness too, I understand that,
That it's still there.
yeah.
So those three items? Okay.
And what about buckthorn? We'll just let that ride for now? Or,
Well, yeah,
okay, all right.
we've got another one to mail out in
True,
August.
true.
Well, and the question is, Mr. Gardner, is that little handout that you have, can that be put in as a separate little insert?
I mean, I can redo it so you get the front and back next to each other. And that could be in a brochure, they could be back to back and cut out. But I think, running it like that would be better. Having it back to back.
I didn't know if that little handout that you have right there could just be inserted as a,
Oh, yeah,
Separate.
I guess it could.
Except that's an extra cost.
But that,
I think you were using those last year at the home show.
yeah, but they were to hand out.
Right.
not for the-
So how many utility bills go out if we had to reproduce that garlic mustard?
How many utility bills? 5,000.
A lot.
5,000 some probably.
It's well into thousands, yeah.
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 Joe, do you know what your flyers cost to reproduce?
I think these were $99 for 1,000.
10 cents.
I thought that was pretty reasonable.
Color?
I think in the last meeting minutes, we set up to $100, but I thought that was so you could use them and then for the home show as well. Wouldn't a lot of that information be duplicated if we put it on the flyer? I mean, with the insert?
It might be bad, it might be good.
But then we're repeating it. We're doing it on a flyer and we're giving them an insert? That doesn't seem,
Oh, meaning the same public?
Yeah, that doesn't seem to make sense.
I think we'd have to do one or the other.
Well, no, I also run the Power Facts, and that to eliminate something from that brochure for that month, having the tree reimbursement for the PUC in a Power Fact running around the same month too, as well, to save room in the utility stuffer is another option. I don't know if that was done in the past. It looks like it probably was at some point, according to what was all spent in the budget, in the shade tree budget. Just an idea.
Okay. So I think we'll pursue this.
Yep.
Okay.
With garlic mustard, tree rebate, and the
Contest.
contest, big tree contest. Okay.
What was that one more time? Tree contest, garlic
Big-
mustard,
And the
Tree.
tree rebate,
Reimbursement.
public utilities,
and rebate.
or the, yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay, got it, okay. Okay, very good. Okay, big tree contest 2018 ideas. Do we need to revamp that, or? Do we need to select a species for this year's contest, I would assume?
I think we said we were gonna do that this meeting, yes.
Yep.
Okay. So, who wants to nominate, or?
I'll nominate that we do a willow trees.
I have a couple suggestions of trees that we should not have on the list. One is butternut, because it'd be darn hard to find one in town.
I'm thinking Buckeye too, is that?
Well, Ohio buckeye there's probably a bunch of those around somewhere.
Okay.
But, because people planted those as shade trees. But-
Well, we'll,
And then we've got catalpa in here that people are forbidden to plant, but I know there's catalpa in town.
oh, yeah, I know. Well, do we have any other nominations besides the willow tree? Any other nominations? Let's make a motion to,
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we use the willow tree as the big tree
is
contest.
there a second to that?
Right.
I'll second.
Not for me.
Okay.
I second.
All right, all in favor of the willow tree as this year's big tree contest, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, okay. Motion is passed. We will use the willow tree as this year's big tree contest. We'll see how that goes. All right, moving on, home show coming up March 23rd through the 25th of 2018. What do we need to discuss? We do have one more meeting, March 1st, about 3 weeks in advance of that date. Is that, any commentary on that?
Just a comment, I won't be out of town during the home show, so I'm not gonna be available to work the booth.
I think at the next meeting, don't we generally set up a schedule? of-
Yep.
I think we can figure it out. I don't think we have any other preparations, vast preparations to do, am I correct?
Mr. Chair, my only
Yes.
thought was that we need to reserve the booth, and
Okay.
I could tell Tom that you want to proceed. I don't, do you know anything about it, Tony? You still involved with that?
I am, and yeah, as long as they get it in, before obviously the show starts, the application,
Okay.
can put it in any time now.
Well, I'll mention it to Tom that you want to proceed with reserving the booth,
I
and
don't think we need a motion or anything, we just ask him to take care of that, all right?
Right, and I think we've shared a booth with Park and Rec.
Right, that's worked well.
Save
I
a little
think.
money.
I think it's worked well.
And I think between Shane and probably Tom, they'll get all the flyers ready, I assume, for handouts.
Yeah, I think Tom and I set up the tree commission booth last year, and I thought it went well.
well, could you talk to, Shane, could you talk to Tom about reserving the booth?
Not yet, but
Could you? Could you?
yeah,
You'll
yep,
see him
yep,
before I do.
absolutely.
He's on vacation or something this
Okay.
week. so.
All right, very good. Any other old business? Hearing none. We'll move on to new business, and we have no new business. So, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
All in favor of adjourning today's meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.